excitement. So I mean, what a very well, before we get started, I also always got to give much love and respect to you guys. Say what's up to you guys, the audience. What's up to you guys? Thanks for you guys that are subscribed to the channel. If you're not subscribed to the channel and you just so happen to run into this show to the stream, go ahead and get this video a thumbs up and make sure you share, subscribe to the channel, and click that notification button so you'll be up to date when new contents drop. But anyways, now we're gonna get cooking. You guys, so NASCAR. I actually got the chance. You guys are already subscribed to the channel, and you know me for previous content. Guys know I am like I said, I would call myself a part-time or short-time NASCAR fan. Back in my between my preteen and up to my young adult years, I used to be a full-time NASCAR fan. But a lot of things have changed. Definitely the sport is not definitely as it's when I say big, I mean as far as the excitement, as far as the popularity, is definitely not as it was compared to like in the 80s and the 90s. It's definitely even the early 2000s, and that's because we've seen a lot of drivers, definitely fan favorite drivers that transition out of the NASCAR association. So I mean that definitely had to play a huge part, because I mean there were a lot of great drivers. You're talking about classic ones. You speak of people like the Earnhardt. You speak of people like Jeff Gordon. You speak of saying there's Petty. Richard Petty. There's so many of those ones that were like just. I mean, they were so big. Even in Jimmy, like I said, in the early 2000s, you got Jimmy Johnson. But like I said, a lot of those big name, major blockbuster, mainstream mega names, they've transitioned out of the sport, and it's possibly the reason why the sport is not getting so much attention as it used to, but it's still around and it's still doing good. But anyway, um, so at the Indianapolis 300. I thought this was a very interesting race. The reason why I thought it was a very interesting race is because the fact that this is actually technically the shortest track on the NASCAR schedule, the shortest track. So, but however, this race took a long time, like literally a long time. There were a lot of things that took place, and we'll get into that. But there was definitely a lot of this race took a long time, which was not expected, seeing how this is actually the shortest track on the NASCAR Sprint Cup schedule. But anyway, let's get into it. Let's start cooking. Let's start grilling. Kyle Busch basically survived 5 different restarts over the last 40 laps. So there you go, right there. I told you guys as I started off. I said it was a lot of things that took place. We're definitely gonna get into them, but that's right there. Over the last 40 laps, they had 5 different restarts over the last 40 laps. Okay, so that was a lot of different pauses and restarts. Definitely, as I said. But that's just one of the things why this race took longer than expected. But we'll get into it. But let's do, like I said, we'll get there at a time. But anyways, Kyle Busch definitely, like I said, he basically won the race. Even though there were 5 or plus restarts at the end of the last about good 30 to 40 laps, including an overtime restart. He pretty much Kyle Busch pretty much dominated this race. I mean, he led, I believe, I believe Kyle Busch led I believe about 121 laps out of 243 laps. I believe, yeah, he dominated this race. Basically, he led pretty much almost half of the laps of the whole entire race. So, very good performance. But a bonus is coming out with the win, because a lot of times when a driver dominates the race, firstly starting on the pole and then dominating the race as far as leading the most laps, a lot of times that doesn't necessarily guarantee a driver victory. I've seen a lot of times where, you know, as I said, I would consider myself a small time, saying a small time, short time, or temporary NASCAR fan, but I keep up to date with the highlights and things. And every now and then I get to catch me a race, and depends, sometimes it'll be actually a very good race. Um, but as I was saying, that doesn't guarantee a driver having that position as far as dominating the race, starting the pole and leading the most laps. I've seen a lot of times where actually that driver winds up finishing probably like around between the 8th to 15th position, you know, after leading the most laps. But that was a good job, you could definitely say, with Kyle Busch dominating the race, starting on the pole, dominating the race by leading 121, which out of 243 laps, that's pretty much almost, if you estimate it, rounded off, that's half of the race. Um, you had a lot of things, like I said, played a key factor. We're going to get into those. Okay, so the Sunday race was definitely prolonged due to three different red flags, including one for lightning in the area that lasted over an hour and a half, basically, pretty much, and 11 cautions. Now, as I said, you guys, these were the key factors that would made this surprising for a lot of people. Like, if someone that didn't see this event, and then you told them who was the winner and told them um, where the race took place at and how long it took, they were like, how is that possible? But like I said, there was a lot of things that had to play and start. As I said, this was about 11 cautions. You had multiple red flags, for the weather. Um, and then you had the multiple restarts towards the ending of as they were getting down to the last in the lap. So there was a lot of restarts. So when you have situations like this, anytime anyone is possible and liable to win this race. No one is guaranteed, even if you're in the front. It's just when you have that many restarts, especially at the end of the race, man, it can get real tricky out there. And trust me, I've seen a lot of things get crazy on those restarts, especially at the ending of a race. So I guess you could say kudos to Kyle Busch for still coming out and dominating the race and still finishing the race strong and actually coming out with the victory, with the win. So that's definitely a good thing for Kyle Busch, a good thing for him. Before we get started, anyone that's continue any further in the show, any of you guys that's just now tuning into the building, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to tune into the show, Too Real for Mainstream. If you're new to the channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button, get this video thumbs up, and click that notification button so you'll be up to date when new content drops. You're just now tuning in. We're talking about the NASCAR event that took place on Sunday. We're at the Indianapolis 300. We're doing a race results recap. Kyle Busch was the winner, But as I said, moving further, you guys, Kyle Busch, what that was a good job, I mean, it's really hard to do that, come out like that, dominating like that. And it was very close. It was very close because this was a real close race, especially at the end, especially with all those restarts that I told you guys. When you have those many restarts at the end, they never know what happened. But Kyle Busch put it off because he had another experienced driver that was there. That's Denny Hamlin. He was right there. So it was a close one. As you guys can see from the photo, that's how close this race was. A photo finish, very close. But with all those cautions that this race had, like I said, it was a lot of cautions in this race. There were a lot of different, reasons for those cautions: accidents, cars, burning rubber, smoke, all different things, engine problems. There were different cars. A lot of people had problems today. Then you had, as I said, when you're talking about red flags, that's automatically that takes time right there, because when you have red flags, that means for a specific reason, and it can take up to maybe a half an hour or even an hour or even 2 or 3, 4, even damn near a whole half a day, or sometimes it can be postponed to the next day, just depending on what it is. So that was a lot of stuff. So that made this race long. And as I said, I've had my experience. I've seen a lot of these races where there were a lot of restarts and a lot of things going on, and it was just real dicey. I mean, I'm talking about, I used to get down in this racing, and I don't really get to, as I said, watch racing as much as I used to. I do keep up with the highlights and stuff, and every now and then I get to sit down and watch a race. But and I also used to go to the Fontana Speedway a lot, check out the races. But I haven't done that in a while, over like the past several 10 years, you could say. But I don't know. I just think that with the characters, the drivers, I just say the drivers. I said characters, but I mean the drivers. I mean, it's just different, a different vibe. There's not really no drivers, I think, as far as like the popularity of those drivers that got that clutch factor, and that's really like I really don't see that. Like, there's only maybe like less than a handful I can count to. And there's no disrespect to these drivers. I mean, there's a lot of drivers, good, decent drivers out there, pretty good drivers out there. But I'm just saying, speaking on my perspective as someone that's basically, you could say, grew up watching the sport, and grew up being a fan of the sport. Wasn't my main sport, but I still, I definitely was a huge fan of the NASCAR. throughout a large portion of my life. But as I said, Kyle Busch took away with the win. Denny Hamlin came in second place. Number 11, Denny Hamlin. Joey Logano came in third place. Pretty decent for Joey Logano, seeing how, as we all know, Joey Logano has, is, I would say, arguably, since all the top drivers have left out and transitioned out of the NASCAR, I had said that Joey Logano was one of the guys that I would say probably would be, be the top guy or dominating NASCAR for a while, like, saying basically taking over the carrying the league, like people like Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski. I mean, they're pretty cool, but I will definitely say Brad Keselowski. I'm surprised. I'm surprised. I would have figured that Brad Keselowski would have obtained more than just one NASCAR Sprint Cup championship by now, especially after those other drivers, all those top mega drivers transition out. I would have figured over the past 5 years he would have obtained at least another one by now. It's surprising. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know what has been going on specific with that team. So I said I basically call myself a short time fan now. So I don't know what's been the issue, but that's a definitely shocker. But as I said, people like Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, even the guy that I don't know what happened with the guy. I think it was medical issues. What was the guy that used to be with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson? I think Casey Kane. Casey Kane. I like the Casey Kane, but I think he had health issues, which made him have to force to be retired, or that was sad to see, because I really think that Casey Kane was going to be the next to carry the franchise, carry the NASCAR league. But things happen. Besides all these other guys, I mean, I just think the way this transition, you have all these guys that came over from the the league, the minor league. It's not the same. Nationwide series. I mean, a lot of these guys. I mean, I don't see that clutch factor they have. So that's why I think that's when NASCAR right now is it's not the same. I mean, these guys out here. That's why you definitely see a whole lot more wrecks and stuff how we used to see. I mean, there were their first fair share of wrecks and stuff in the early 2000s and in the 90s and the 80s, but not how the wrecks are now. And the wrecks are like heavily high now, because these guys, they don't have that experience like that, and they don't have that that it factor. And the guys that are still here that's been in the game for a while, such as like Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick. I mean, these guys were the guys, Martin Truex Jr., these are guys that were always just guys that were just trudging along, while people like for instance, Jeff Gordon was dominating, guys like Martin were dominating, all those on the Wallace team, seeing a lot of those guys that were dominating, these other guys like Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr. It's a lot of them ones that still, several of them that still floating around that has the age and experience. Those guys have just been still in the league, because I mean, they were never like the dominant drivers, so they're just still trying to do what they do, make ends meet, I guess. But it is what it is. But anyways, the finishing 10 right there. You had Kyle Busch at number 8 starting finishing first. Number 11, Denny Hamlin finishing second. Joey Logano finished number 22, finishing third. Kyle Larson at number 5, finishing fourth, which Kyle Larson has been doing good so far. I believe him and Kyle Busch are tied for the most wins so far in this NASCAR 2023 season. So those guys are definitely not. Or is it William Byron? I believe it's William Byron. But Carl Larson, he's been decent this year as well. Matter of fact, I believe Kyle Larson won at the race that happened over there in what's that, North Carolina, Wilkesboro. I think that's where Kyle Larson won. And that whole little scandal that happened with the radio hacking. And where was I off? Oh yeah, Martin Truex Jr. finished 5th, number 19. Number 12, Ryan Blaney finished 6th. The number 99, Daniel Suarez finished 7th. Number 24, William Byron finished 8th. Michael McDowell, number 34, finished 9th. And Kevin Harvick, number 4, finished 10th. That was the top 10, ladies and gentlemen. But this race, I would say Normally, this is the race at Indianapolis, not Indianapolis, but in Illinois 300. Normally, this is not a race that's like one of the most exciting races that we see on a NASCAR schedule because of the fact that it's the shortest one of the, or I think believe the shortest track on the schedule. So there's not really like that a lot of boom. But the fact that when I went and saw the highlights after looking at the stats and stuff, I saw the highlights. This race was interesting because of all the. I mean, you had all the restarts, you had all the cautions, you had the red flags, and then you had those multiple restarts at the end of the race. I mean, definitely. When I saw the highlights, it was definitely an interesting race. What we assumed that would have been just a short, quick race, got over with quick. It was definitely good. But to wrap this up, as far as the NASCAR, basically that was the finishing top 10 lineup. Basically, Kyle Busch dominated and came out with the victory. Started on the pole, so that was a good job for the number 8 Kyle Busch. Danny Hamlin finishing second. That's expected. As I said, Danny Hamlin is one of the strongest drivers right now, so he's always been, right there in the top 5 or the top 10 for over the past several years in the NASCAR Sprint Cup points. Joey Logano, of course, up there dominating, finishing third. Kyle Larson, Mark Truex Jr., Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez, William Byron, and Michael Dowell. That was the lineup. And as I said, I just thought you guys would know, for you guys that didn't get a chance to see this race, give you guys some updates, give you guys some game recap, and explain to you guys about all that and everything that happened as far as what made this what appeared and what assumed to be a quick race and a boring race. It turned out to be a very interesting race, but a long drag on race as well, as well too, with all those red flags.